Srivasa, Devrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are going to continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, from Canto 6, Chapter 4. We are reading the Haṁsa-guhya prayers that Dakṣa is offering to the Supreme Lord. And yesterday we read text 32. Today we are going to do text 33. Yesterday we read how the Haṁsa-guhya prayers state that whether one believes that Brahman is the ultimate, or one understands that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is that God is the Supreme Person. Both are both are speaking about the same absolute truth. Only they're looking at it from different angles. So Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan is all of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So one's understanding may be up to Brahman, or one's understanding may be up to Paramatma. Of course, the complete understanding is of Bhagwan. But even if one's understanding is partial, is still the understanding of the absolute truth, as is stated by all the Vedic literatures and Bhagavatam also. So we'll read text 33 today. Yo no grahartam vachatam padamulam.
Yo anugrahartam
bhajatam padadpulam
Anamarupo Bhagavan Ananta.
Anamarupo Bhagavan Ananta
Namani Rupani Janma Karmabhi.
Namani Rupani cha janma karma
Veje Samayam Paramam Prasidatu.
Veje
samaya
param prasidatu.
prasidatu.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is inconceivably opulent, who is devoid of all material names, forms, and pastimes, and who is all-pervading, is especially merciful to the devotees who worship His lotus feet. Thus, He exhibits transcendental forms and names with His different pastimes. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose form is eternal and full of knowledge and bliss, be merciful to me. In regard to the significant word Anama Rupa, Sri Sridhar Swami says, Prakrita Nama Rupa Rahitopi. The word Anama, which means having no name, indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no material name. So Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, he's saying how Sridhar Swami explains it. Sridhar Swami is a great acharya. He's commented on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Anama means no name, but it means that God has no material name. Doesn't mean that He has no name. Simply by chanting the name of Narayan to call His son, Ajamil attains salvation. This means that Narayan is not an ordinary mundane name. It is not material, non-material. So how to understand? No name means no material name. So, like we chant, say, suppose water or some other mundane name. It's not going to give us liberation. But here, Ajamil called out Narayan. And by calling Narayan, he got liberation. So we can see Narayan is not an ordinary material name. It's transcendental. The word Anam, therefore, indicates that the names of the Supreme Lord do not belong to this material world. Golokera Premadhana Harinam Sankirtan. This Harinam Sankirtan has come directly from Golok Vrindavan, the Hare Krishna mantra. So it's not the names of this material world, it's transcendental names. The vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra is not a material sound, and similarly, the form of the Lord and his appearance and activities are all non-material. So just as the name of the Lord is not material, his form is also not material, his leelas, pastimes, are not material, his appearance, janma, is not material. They are all transcendental. To show his causeless mercy to the devotees as well as to the non-devotees, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appears in this material world with names, forms, and pastimes, all of which are transcendental. Unintelligent men who cannot understand this think that these names, forms, and pastimes are material, and therefore they deny that he has a name or a form. So God comes, he comes in his own transcendental form to show us this is how I look. So there's no need to imagine, oh, God may be looking like that, he must be looking like that, or I believe he may look like this. No, he's saying, here I am, look at me. This is my original transcendental form. So his name, form, pastimes are all transcendental. Even when he comes to the material world, he does not take a material form. Just as when a king enters the prison, he does not need to wear a prison uniform. He's not bound by the laws of prison. He can come and go as he pleases. He wears his own kingly robes and he goes. So this is how we can understand. Considered with scrutiny, the conclusion of non-devotees who say that God has no name, and that of devotees who know that his name is not material are practically the same. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no material name, form, birth, appearance, or disappearance. But nevertheless, he takes his birth, janma. So someone may say that God has no name, but actually the correct way to understand is he has no material name. His name is not material. It's coming from the spiritual world. So I stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.6, Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adhisthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Although the Lord is unborn Aja and his body never undergoes material changes, he nevertheless appears as an incarnation, maintaining himself always in the transcendental stage, Shuddha Sattva. So people may get bewildered. Oh, he is unborn, Aja, and yet we are celebrating Janmashtami every year. We say 5,000 years ago he appeared. Yeah, he appears, but he still exists even before that. No, it doesn't mean he didn't exist. We are understanding from the Vedas. Even Sripad Shankaracharya states that Narayana Paravyaktat, he existed before the creation takes place. Just like the king, when he comes inside the prison, it's not that the king did not exist before he entered the prison. He existed. He was just in another place, no? So thus he exhibits his transcendental forms, names, and activities. That is his special mercy toward his devotees. Others may continue merely arguing about whether the absolute truth has form or not. But when a devotee, by the grace of the Lord, sees the Lord personally, he becomes spiritually ecstatic. So people may argue, oh, the Lord has a form, he doesn't have a form. But arguing about the Lord does not at all affect the truth. The truth is he has a transcendental form. And the devotees who are seeing him, they are completely in bliss. The devotees who revive their relationship with him instead of trying to argue he exists or not. There are others who are trying to revive their relationship with him. And they are being completely ecstatic when they see him personally. Unintelligent persons say that the Lord does nothing. Actually, he has nothing to do, but nevertheless, he has to do everything, because without his sanction, no one can do anything. The unintelligent, however, cannot see how he is working and how the entire material nature is working under his direction. Krishna says, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam. He says in Bhagavad Gita that this material world, everything is going on under his supervision. So although he does nothing personally, everything is happening under his direction. He does not have to, like, one by one physically do things, but by his will, everything is working, by his supreme will. His different potencies work perfectly. We say God is omnipotent, so by his potencies. So Prabhupada here is mentioning the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.8. Na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, na tat samas chabi yadikas cha drishyate, parasya shaktir vividheva shruyate, swabhaviki jnana balakriya cha. He has nothing to do personally, for since his potencies are perfect, everything is immediately done by his will. Persons to whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not revealed cannot see how he's working, and therefore they think that even if there is God, he has nothing to do or has no particular name. So the Shvetashvatara Upanishad is saying that one who has surrendered to God, Krishna says, as you surrender to me, I reveal myself. So to those persons, God has revealed that how he is working, so they can understand how he's working. Whereas others may just simply go on speculating without having the perfect knowledge. Everything is done by God under his will, by his potencies. We say he's omnipotent. This is how all his potencies are acting. Actually, the Lord's name already exists because of his transcendental activities. The Lord is sometimes called Guna Karmana, because he's named according to his transcendental activities. For example, Krishna means all attractive. So according to his activities, he is also given many names. Krishna means all attractive. Does anyone know other names which are based on his activity? Makhanchor. Yes, Makhanchor.
Girivardhari.
Girivardhari. Yes.
Kunj Bihari.
Kunj Bihari.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was another one.
I forgot. I
Yes,
said
so many. Partha Sarthi. Huh?
Parthasarthi, yes.
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 Yeah, Partha-sarthi. Ranchor, he's called Ranchor also.
Nandala,
Yes.
Nand,
Yeah, the son of Lord.
Nandlal. Yeah.
Yes.
Yashoda
Yashodanandan.
Nandan. Yeah.
Yashodanandan.
Yes.
Yashoda Nandan. Madhav.
Yashodanandan.
Gopal,
Madhav.
Rishikesh.
Gopesh.
Rishikesh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rishikesh,
So many.
Gopal,
Mukund. Mukund.
Achyuta, Mukunda.
Murari,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Murari.
many.
So many.
Gopal.
So unlimited.
Krishna Murari,
Gopal.
yeah.
Yes.
Rishikesh,
Yeah.
Rishikesh,
Rishikesh. Yeah. So we can see
Madhusudan,
unlimited. Huh? I'm sorry.
Madhusudan.
Madhusudan. Yeah. So we can see, how many unlimited names he has. We can go on and on based on his transcendental activities. So now here Prabhupada is explaining Krishna means all attractive. This is the Lord's name because his transcendental qualities make him very attractive. Krishna, he attracts everyone's heart. That's the meaning of all attractive. Krishna means all attractive. He has such amazing qualities that everyone is attracted to him. As a small boy, he lifted Govardhan Hill, and in his childhood, he killed many demons. such activities are very attractive. And therefore he is sometimes called Giridhari, Madhusudan, Aghanishudan, and so on. Because he acted as the son of Nanda Maharaj, he is called Nanda Tanuja. These names already exist. But since non-devotees cannot understand the names of the Lord, he is sometimes called Anama or nameless. This means that he has no material names. All his activities are spiritual, and therefore he has spiritual names. So he has no material name, but all his names are spiritual. His activities are spiritual. His form is spiritual. Generally, less intelligent men are under the impression that the Lord has no form. Therefore, he appears in his original form as Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, to carry out his mission of participating in the battle of Kurukshetra and pastimes to protect the devotees and vanquish the demons. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam. This is his mercy. So his form that he is fighting, he's not fighting in Kurukshetra, he is the charioteer, but that form is a transcendental form. It's not material. His form is Satchit Ananda. So this is his mercy. For those who think that he has no form and no work to do, Krishna comes to show that indeed he works. He works so gloriously that no one else can perform such uncommon acts. Although he appeared as a human being, he married 16,108 wives, which is impossible for a human being to do. Yeah, he not only married 16,108 wives, but he was living with each of them. In each of the palaces he was living, he expanded himself into 16,108. So no ordinary human being can do that. God can do. The Lord performs such activities to show people how great he is, how affectionate he is, and how merciful he is. Although his original name is Krishna, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He acts in unlimited ways, and therefore, according to his work, he has many, many thousands of names. So one can go on and on saying, counting his names, but there's no limit because the Lord is unlimited, his activities are unlimited, so his names are also unlimited. Ya prakritir jnana pather janana
prakriti
pathe jananam
yatha shayam dekhagato vibhati
yatha ashayam dehagato vibhati
yatha nilaparthivam ashrito gunam
yatha
Parthivam
anilparthivam
ashrito
ashito
Gunam.
sa ishvaro me kurutam manoratham.
sa ishvaro me kurutam manoratham.
As the air carries various characteristics of the physical elements like the aroma of a flower or colors resulting from a mixture of dust in the air, the Lord appears through lower systems of worship according to one's desires, although he appears as the demigods and not in his original form. What is the use of these other forms? May the original Supreme Personality of Godhead please fulfill my desires. The impersonalists imagine the various demigods to be forms of the Lord. For example, the Mayavadis worship 5 demigods, gods, Panchopasana. They do not actually believe in the form of the Lord, but for the sake of worship, they imagine some form to be God. Generally, they imagine a form of Vishnu, a form of Shiva, and forms of Ganesh, the sun god, and Durga. This is called Panchopasana. Dakṣa, however, wanted to worship not an imaginary form, but the supreme form of Lord Krishna. So someone may imagine some demigods to be God, but Dakṣa is saying, I don't want to imagine anything. I want to believe, I want to worship the original form of God. We don't need to imagine. We just simply need to hear. Krishna is saying, this is my original form, Shyam Sundar form. And the Mahajans are saying that. Brahmaji is declaring it so much. Narad Muni, all the devotees. So Dakṣa is saying he wants to not imagine any form of the Lord, but actually worship the supreme form of the Lord. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes the difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and an ordinary living being. As pointed out in a previous verse, Sarvam Puman Vedavanamschat Tajgyo Naveda Sarva Gyam Anantam Ide. The omnipotent Supreme Lord knows everything. But the living being does not actually know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we had read in one of the verses earlier, just as the eyes is showing the hands and legs how to move, eyes can see the hands and legs and is assisting in the functions, but the hands and legs cannot see the eyes. Similarly, although the soul is being directed by the super soul, but yet the soul cannot see the super soul. So just as the super soul can knows everything about us, but the soul does not know. We don't know about the Lord. We don't know actually everything. We can know to the degree he reveals himself. To that degree we can know him. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I know everything, but no one knows me. This is the difference between the Supreme Lord and an ordinary living being. Like we are just in our body. So, but we don't know what's happening in another's body. But Krishna, the Paramatma, he's there in everyone's heart. So he knows everything, what's happening in everywhere. So there's a difference. In a prayer in Srimad Bhagavatam, Queen Kunti says, my dear Lord, you exist inside and outside, yet no one can see you. He's inside in our hearts, in the heart of every living entity, and outside, he's in every atom of the universe. We can't see him. The conditioned soul cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by speculative knowledge or by imagination. One must therefore know the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He reveals himself, but he cannot be understood by speculation. So Krishna says, no, ye yathamam prapadyante, hamstatheva bhajami. As one surrenders, I reward them accordingly. So we cannot try to imagine God. We can't, because that's still going to be our imagination. If we actually want to understand God, we need to engage in bhakti. He says, bhaktyamam abhijanati. When we engage in devotional service, we please him, and then he's pleased to reveal himself to us. So we can know when he reveals himself to us. Otherwise, we can go on imagining for millions and millions of births, and yet we will not be able to understand the absolute truth. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 29, Athapi te deva padambujataya prasadaleshanugrihita evahe janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko pichiram vichit. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. So this is a verse spoken by Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is saying, how can actually one understand the supreme absolute truth? How can one understand God? How can one understand Krishna? Is by the mercy of Krishna. Only when we can attract his mercy. But those who are just speculating, if we are going to just depend on our mind, we will never be able to understand God. Here Brahmaji is saying that one may study Vedas for many, many years and try to speculate, God may be like this, maybe like that. But then that's just going to be a speculation. It will just merely be our belief. I believe he should be like this. I believe he must be like this. But then it's just merely our belief. And then what's the value of our belief in front of the truth? The truth is the truth, that he is like this. And we can understand him by his mercy. And he says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. I can be known only by devotion. By devotion, he is pleased to reveal himself. This is the verdict of the Shastra. An ordinary man may be a great philosopher and may speculate upon what the absolute truth is, what his form is, and where he is existing. But he cannot understand these truths. You see, speculation is different from understanding. One may keep on speculating, thinking, oh, it may be like this, it should be like this, I believe it is like this, but it may be very, very, very far away from the truth. To understand the truth is something very different than just speculating in the mind. Sevan mukhe hi jivado se swayam eva smriti abha. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead only through devotional service. This is also explained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself in Bhagavad Gita 18:55. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Yavan yaschasmi tattvatāh. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is only by devotional service. So we don't need to imagine. We just simply engage in devotional service, and by his mercy, God is pleased to reveal himself to us. There's no need to speculate. Because we speculate, our knowledge is going to be faulty, and we will never be able to find the truth. So here the absolute truth himself is saying, engage in devotional service and you shall know me. He's giving us the process, how we can know the truth. He's saying, engage in devotional service. Unintelligent persons want to imagine or concoct a form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But devotees want to worship the actual personality of Godhead. Therefore, Dakṣa prays, one may think of you as personal, impersonal, or imaginary. But I wish to pray to your Lordship that you fulfill my desires to see you as you actually are. So Dakṣa is saying, I don't care, other people may imagine something or someone to be God. They may be just imagining. But I want to pray to you. I want to see you as you are. I want you to fulfill my desires, the original personality of Godhead. So knowing the truth as he is. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that this verse is especially meant for the impersonalist who thinks that he himself is the supreme, because there is no difference between the living being and God. The Mayavadi philosopher thinks that there is only one supreme truth, and that he is also that supreme truth. Actually, this is not knowledge, but foolishness. And this verse is especially meant for such fools whose knowledge has been stolen by illusion, Mayaya Prahata Jnana. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that such persons, Jnani Manina, think themselves very advanced, but actually they are unintelligent. So there is one absolute truth, but we are not that absolute truth. That's a reality check on us. God is God. He is the absolute truth. We are his part and parcel. So we are parts of the absolute truth, but we are not the complete absolute truth. We are part and parcel of God. We are Brahman, yes, but we are not supreme Brahman. We can never become God. No one can become God. God is God. There's no one equal to or greater than him. That's the point that this verse is that Dakṣa is also trying to say in this verse of the Haṁsa-guhya prayers, that God is God. Our imagination is just going to be our imagination. So in this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says, Swadehastham harim prabhu adham ajivam evatu madhyam chapi anirnitam Jiva Bhinnam Janardanam. There are three classes of men. The lowest, Adam, Adama. Those in the middle, Madhyam, and the best, Uttam. The lowest Adam think that there is no difference between God and the living entity, except that the living entity is under designations, whereas the absolute truth has no designations. So here Prabhupada is quoting Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya is saying there are three types of people: the lowest, the middle, and the best. So the lowest is one who's thinking there's no difference between the living entity and God. Thinking that, okay, living entity is under designation, whereas the absolute truth has no designation. In their opinion, as soon as the designations of the material body are dissolved, the jiva, the living entity, will mix with the supreme. So the understanding is that once the living entity is liberated, he becomes God. So they give the argument that Ghata, Ghataksha, Pataksha, in which the body is compared to a pot with the sky within and the sky without. When the pot breaks, the sky inside becomes one with the sky outside. And so the impersonalists say that the living being becomes one with the Supreme. This is their argument. But Srila Madhvacharya says that such an argument is put forward by the lowest class of men. So someone may say that, okay, you take a pot. The pot is empty, but there is sky. There's sky inside the pot. And there's sky outside the pot. Ethers, the space is there. So you break the pot and then the sky mixes. But we have to understand that the sky is not conscious, is not individual living being. So we cannot compare ourselves to the sky. We are jivas, we are living entities. The sky is not conscious. Always the comparison has to be apple with apple. We cannot compare a living entity to something which is not living, right? So the sky is not, it's just a material element. It's not conscious. That's why it's called the inferior nature of God. Whereas we, the jivas, are called superior nature. Why? Because we are conscious. So even when we get liberated, we can never give up our individuality. We never give up our consciousness. We always, Krishna says that the soul is eternal. He says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, that the soul cannot be cut to pieces, cannot be withered by the wind. The soul is ever existing. So we are always going to exist. Even after liberation, we continue to exist as individual living beings. So then going forward, another class of men cannot ascertain what the actual form of the Supreme is, but they agree that there is a Supreme who controls the activities of the ordinary living being. Such philosophers are accepted as mediocre. So then there are other philosophers who understand, yes, there is a difference between God and the living entity, understanding, yes, that I'm not God, that God is greater than me, and that God is controlling everything, but not knowing who that Supreme Person is. So this is still a higher understanding than the previous understanding where one thinks himself as God. So this is a higher. The best, however, are those who understand the Supreme Lord, Sachidananda Vigraha, Purnanandadi Gunakam, Sarvajiva Vilakshanam. His form is completely spiritual, full of bliss, and completely distinct from that of the conditioned soul or any other living entity. So Madhvacharya now is saying, who is the highest philosopher who understands that God has a spiritual form, completely distinct from any living entity, from any other conditioned soul. His form is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, eternal, full of bliss, full of knowledge. Uttamstu Harim Prahus Taratam Yena Teshucha. Such philosophers are the best because they know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself differently to worshippers in various modes of material nature. So Krishna says, Ye yathamam prapadyante tams tatheva bhajamyaham. As one surrenders, I reveal myself accordingly. So how one wants to worship God, that's how God appears to them. You know, one wants to understand that they are God, then God makes that faith very strong. When one wants to understand, oh yes, there is a difference between God and me, then God makes them realize, yes, there is a difference. And when one actually wants to see how God actually really is, God reveals himself, his form to them. They know that there are 33 million demigods just to convince the conditioned soul that there is a supreme power and to induce him to agree to worship one of these demigods so that by the association of devotees, he may be able to understand that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So the demigods are there to understand that there are higher powers than us, that we are not supreme. There are personalities who are greater than us. And by understanding this, by a gradual evolution of our consciousness, then we will be able to understand Krishna, that Krishna is the most supreme. He is the highest, even above these 33 million demigods, by association with the devotees. As Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mata Parataram Nanyat, Kinchid Asti Dhananjaya, there is no truth superior to me. No, there is no one greater than Krishna. There is no one equal to Krishna. There is no truth higher than Krishna. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Krishna says when one understands, when one comes to him, then one will surrender to him. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sudurlabha. He says when one understands that there is no one more superior to Krishna, then one will surrender to him. It may take one Bahunam Janmanam Ante. It may take one many, many births and deaths. But when one comes to understand there is no truth higher to Krishna, one will surrender to him. Samahatma Sudurlabha, and such a great soul is very rare. Aham Adir Hi Devanam, I am the origin of all the demigods. Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, I am superior to everyone, even Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the other demigods. No one else can proclaim such things. Why? Because they are not. And Krishna can proclaim such things. Why? Because he is. He is the origin of all demigods. That's why he is able to say such things. He's saying, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. I'm the origin of everything. There's no truth superior to me. These are the conclusions of the Shastra, and one who accepts these conclusions should be considered a first-class philosopher. So if we at all want to become a first-class philosopher, we have to accept the verdict of the Shastra, the scriptures. The scriptures are all proclaiming that Krishna is the absolute truth. Such a philosopher knows that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord of the demigods, Deva Devashwaram Sutram Anandam Prana Vedina. That all the demigods, they come from Krishna. Krishna is the origin of the demigods. So Krishna is even greater than all the demigods. The demigods are living entities, whereas Krishna is God. So that's why Krishna is saying, I'm the origin of the demigods. And one who can understand it and understand this, then he is called a first-class philosopher. Because this is what the Shastras also say, that there is no one equal to or greater than Krishna. Even Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva are not equal to or greater than Krishna. Krishna is the greatest. So, questions, comments? Sorry, it's already.
His prayers are nice. Like they all have one, like the deep tattva.
Yeah.
The deep tattva is there in each prayer.
Yeah, so true. To understand the position of God, to understand
Yeah.
Krishna's position, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Haṁsa-guhya prayers. Yes.
Yeah, even
So-
when we talk about Sagun and Nirgun, many times, right? Like they say, Krishna, Supreme Person, Godhead, Krishna is Nirgun, and then even like some say Sagun, like, but the Sagun, Nirgun means like Sagun means his attributes are transcendental. And Nirgun doesn't mean that he doesn't have any attributes, qualities. It just means that his attributes are not material,
That's right.
right? Like how in
That's right.
chapter there is that verse, one verse comes. Which one is better? The Sagun or Nirgun way of worshipping, of reaching Krishna. So it doesn't mean that Nirgun means he is without any attributes. It's just that his attributes are not material.
Material.
Correct?
That's right. That's right. Nirguna. Guna means
Yeah.
the
Nirguna,
modes.
Sagun. Yeah.
So without the modes,
Without.
and then we understand how Krishna can be, this means he has no material qualities. He has all transcendental qualities. All his qualities are transcendental. Spiritual. Yes. His qualities are all spiritual. He never acts under the modes of nature.
Hmm.
So thank you
So
all so
just
much.
one more question, Shilpa ji. Like they're
Yeah.
making you understand about the three kind of people according to Madhavacharya, right? So they are just the normal people, not the devotees. Like we have read before about the devotees also, that there are three kind of devotees. So that is a different, and they're just telling about the normal jiva, right? That there
That's
are three
right.
kinds of jivas.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.